there's more technical content strategy advice floating around than ever before. And at the same time, people are feeling more lost than ever in terms of what they should actually do and how and when and so on and so forth. And I think the reason is in how technical content strategy has usually been done. So these are kind of the levels that I identified in terms of kind of what the different deliverables were by, how good were the people and organizations delivering it. Yeah? So at level 0, which is like the most basic, basically you would have people doing some SEO research and then um, helping identify, like maybe if they were kind of a little bit better than most, they would help you also identify non-SEO opportunities for content strategy, right? So they would say, okay, these are the terms that are available on SEO. There's this level of competition or difficulty, and these are the things that we know are kind of tend to be useful for your business. Okay, so we're gonna just give you a list, yeah, of SEO opportunities, non-SEO opportunities. Level 1 was people who actually got good at organizing those, because if you just give somebody a list, then that is maybe a little bit useful, but if you organize that list and prioritize it, then okay, this is kind of a little bit more useful. Then people kind of start to make a little bit more sense of it, and it tends to work a little better. And then level 2, people who were like really good, then they would also provide an angle for every item that they're providing. So like here's an example of how we were doing this, and this is from 2024. Yeah, an example of how we were doing this at the beginning of 2024 was pretty much like giving people a list of opportunities, and then also doing the scoring or organizing this by theme, and then providing notes on what exactly to do for that opportunity and what angle would be useful, right? So this was kind of the level 2, I think. So this is, but in my opinion, we were kind of stuck at level 2 for a bit. But then something that happens as a result of this is that the companies are and marketing teams are kind of still stuck on now what. Yeah, so they receive this big list, and there's lots of confusion on what to do next. And I think one of the reasons is this was just incomplete. Yeah, the way that these levels were done, like this is not really a complete engagement. This is not really helping companies and people as much as it could. And I discovered that there's actually more levels, actually many more levels, to the stuff that needs to be done for the strategy to actually work. Yeah, and for the strategy advice to be actually useful. Level 3 is once the content is created, how do you actually compete? Yeah, because the list above, if we look at it, it kind of talks about an angle, it talks about the keywords, but it doesn't really tell you what to do if it doesn't work, or like how to ensure that it actually works for this keyword. And so at level 3, you could talk about, are you going to just compete on authority? Do you have enough authority? How do you prove it? Or do you need a link building strategy? Do you need additional promotion beyond link building for SEO opportunities? And then for non-SEO opportunities, it could be also how are you going to compete in the marketplace for the attention, right? Because if there is not going to be SEO traffic, how are you going to get traffic? Is it going to be organic social? Is it going to be paid social? Is it going to be community promo? And how exactly you're going to execute those, and when? And what is the budget associated, and what is the effort required? So this is level 3 that I was able to identify. Now, level 4 was, okay, we're getting into the implementation. Yes, and when you're starting to talk about implementation, and all of this advice can be great, but if people don't really know who is actually going to do the work, then this wonderful strategy will just sit on the shelf somewhere and not really kind of be used, and therefore no value will be unlocked. So who is actually going to do the work? How to actually get all of this stuff live in a way that's going to, take a reasonable amount of time? And what is the workflow that's going to be used, and how to make sure that this workflow is actually useful for the organization that is this is being prepared for. And then one wonderful question that a lot of people don't think about: who is doing the quality assurance, and how does the quality assurance happen? So all of these questions, I think, are being answered in level 4. Then you move on to level 5. And this is already kind of once you have decided on the strategy and it's fairly complete, you have decided on the implementation and you actually have people working on this stuff, and you're actually making progress. How do you track the progress against expectations? So that means that you have to have set the expectations first, and then once you have the expectations, you actually kind of have to show, this is where we expect it to be, and this is what is actually happening. And this means taking this strategy that you created and then bringing in the rank tracking for SEO stuff. If you're saying, okay, our strategy is to rank for these keywords, then we should be bringing in, rank tracking to show that. Traffic metrics, looking at analytics, what is happening there, looking at engagement on, depending on the promotion method on social media or, just on page time, things like that, what people do on the pages after they arrive. And conversion metrics, of course, because if the strategy was built around, driving leads and driving signups, things like that, then the numbers should go up at some point, right? And so you should probably have that. And then forecasting, right? So if you're going to be tracking the progress, then you kind of need to show what you're expecting to happen and kind of when and by what timelines and why. So all of this would happen here. And then, of course, kind of reporting those stats to leadership in some form. So that could be presentations, could be dashboards, could be some other format that people will be receptive to. So this is level 5. And then you move on to level 6, which is getting into the money, right? Because if you want a content program to be funded, then eventually it all needs to come down to some sort of financial benefit, and it needs to be sustainable financially, it needs to be economically viable. And what that means is basically you have to get into financial forecasting. So you have to get into the point where you are taking all of the budget that is going to the wonderful workflow that you presented and the strategy that you presented. You have to look at the performance expectations. You have to kind of look at all the forecasts and so on. And you have to actually understand when is the organization that is doing this work, when they are investing, when they're getting the return on their investment, most likely, what are the ranges, when this could start working, depending on kind of the different risk factors, things like that. And you need to actually show via the financial progress tracking, you actually need to show where you are in that process. Yeah. And then level 7, which is, I think, the ultimate level, is the content portfolio strategy. So once you have this financial kind of financial forecasting done, and you have the structure, all the way down from the top level financial indicators to the kind of to the strategy, to the implementation strategy, to the actual doing the work and quality assurance, and all of these, like everything is working. Then you can move on to the portfolio strategy, which is how do you where do you invest, right? Do you invest in one strategy? Do you invest in 2 strategies, 3 strategies? What happens if you have multiple products that you can potentially use content marketing to promote, which is likely to give you better return in investment given the market situation, given the competition, given where the market is in terms of maturation cycles, things like that. So it seems like kind of a lot of the industry is still actually stuck in these levels, and then kind of a lot of people are stuck in level 0 even. And then what you actually need to make progress on content marketing programs is much more than this, right? Starting from, actually getting much more specific into the strategy, to then getting into implementation strategy, and then, getting to performance and financial forecasting. Yeah, so this is how I see technical content strategy these days.